Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for the latest new film from Netflix, of course being The Half of It. So what The Half of It is essentially about is we center on the character of Ellie Chou. She is this high school student that is very much picked upon for various reasons, her heritage being one of them, but also because she's very much an overachiever. She's very intelligent in a way. She's the kind of student that writes papers for, other students that aren't nearly as bright. Maybe they're better socially, but she ends up doing that for them. But she also is a closeted lesbian who has a crush on basically the person that everyone thinks is like the most popular girl and the most like attractive girl in school, Aster. She's been head over heels in love with her for, well, not head over heels in love, but like she's had a crush on her for a while. And so when this character of Paul Munsky, who is this jock, basically decides to assist, basically also we find out has a crush on this girl. He wants Ellie's help in writing these love letters to her because he can't really do it himself. So Ellie decides to be his ghostwriter in a sense, and basically these two now have to try to work together in order to win the heart of Aster and also starting to bond themselves, and that's really all I'm going to say. So the half of it overall, I wasn't really that excited for this film. I've said it before, when it comes to high school films, Netflix tends to be very 50-50. There's some they make that are really good, and then there's quite a few that are very mediocre, and then some that are really bad as well. But most of the time, they turn out to be pretty mediocre, especially as of recently. I don't really feel they've been quite as good as they usually are, and this just seemed like a film that just wasn't really going to do a whole lot for me. I felt like I knew where this was going to go, so I didn't really have the many expectations. The trailer and things like that just didn't really hook me in. But I have to say, after watching this movie, the half of it is easily, I think, one of the best kind of teen romance films that I've seen in quite a bit. It's very different from what I was really expecting it to be, and I think it's definitely a film worth checking out for sure, but we're just getting to right now. So the first thing that I really do want to talk about here, I think, is the writing to this film, because it goes in a very different direction than you really would expect it to. This is not the kind of film that is just these two like the same girl and now they're fighting over her. While it is that at first, it's not done in the way you would expect. This is not the kind of film where it's about who's going to win this girl, who's going to win her over. The film's not really concerned about that. It's far more concerned about examining both of these characters and actually how them doing this brings them a lot closer together, because Ellie is someone who is very antisocial. She doesn't really seem to have many friends. She's very quiet. She dresses differently from everyone else. And obviously, people are thrown off by that. They don't really understand her in that way. And so you can very much see that. But then you look at someone like Paul, who is this jock, and he's someone who is successful in the way, but he also just has a really hard time communicating with people. And you wouldn't expect that to be, to his character to be like that in that way. You would expect him to be someone that's like really overly confident, but that's actually not the case. One of the best scenes in the movie is when he actually decides to go on a date with Aster for the first time, and he can barely muster up the strength to talk to her about really anything serious. So you really do see that these two kind of need each other in that way. These two find out a lot more about each other than they really did think. For example, Ellie's father is someone that is mourning the loss of their mother. He's also someone that is very successful in like cooking and things like that, and so he kind of takes Paul under his wing, and I really ended up liking the bond that these two really did form. It was very special. It went in a direction I really wasn't expecting, and I think it really ended up being the heart and soul of the movie. I think the film thrives best when it's focusing on these two characters. There's a lot that Paul is actually going through that he hasn't really told anyone about, mainly because he's kind of scared to. He's worried it's gonna, ruin his image. He's worried that people won't take him as seriously, but you realize a lot more about him, and that's the something else that I definitely really did enjoy as well. So I thought these two characters were very well written. I really liked where they ended up going, and I think they were definitely the best parts of the film. And the performers here as well, Leah Lewis and Daniel Diemer, are both fantastic, but Leah Lewis especially, she carries this entire film. I really haven't seen her in much of anything before, but I really do feel after this film, we're gonna see her in a lot more stuff. She definitely is very talented. Oh, I'm looking right now. I just realized that she was actually the only thing she's done prior to this is Fred 3. And obviously, you watch this film, you realize they really did not utilize her that well because she actually is a very talented actress. And I hope to see more of her after this film because I think she had some really great comedic timing, but she also just gave a very impressive performance with what she has to do. I'd say the quieter moments where she has to try to make her actual like benefit of this very unclear. Paul doesn't know that she likes Aster, obviously. He just thinks that she's doing this as a way to help him out, and because again, this is something that she does regularly. And so I really like the way that they dived into that. I thought that she just did a really great job, and I think we're definitely going to be seeing more of her from here on out. Even Aster as a character is not just the, oh my god, she's just this perfect girl that has no flaws whatsoever. No, there's actually a lot that she's going through. There's a few things that she's very conflicted about. She's in this relationship with this guy who doesn't really respect her. He's not a very good person, and one of the best scenes in the movie, I think, is actually this conversation that Aster and Ellie have, and you realize why Ellie likes Aster. It's not just because of her being this beautiful girl, it's because she actually is very intelligent and insightful, and there's a lot of things that she wants to do, and so I think that they did a really good job of making this character feel like a real person, and that's something you don't see a lot in these movies. A lot of the time it's focused on archetypes, but this film is much more interested in showing these characters as people, showing their daily struggles, and that's something that I really did find myself enjoying quite a bit. I think the writing here is really good. The way the film is just written, Alice Wu did such a great job, and her directing as well is really good here because the film, I would say, is neither a comedy or a drama. It's the perfect blend. It's very much a dramedy in that way, and I think there are some very funny moments in the film, especially when it involves Ellie writing these letters and Paul then having to talk to Aster, and you can tell that there is a clear there's just a clear difference between these two, and I thought that's definitely, there's a lot of fun scenes there. But the film also does get pretty heavy at points because Ellie is someone that's lost her mother, and that's taken a bit of a toll on her, and you do feel that throughout the movie. You definitely do feel some of what she's going through here. Although I will say that is one of my flaws with this movie. I think that they could have done a better job of getting us to understand what Ellie is really going through. Her relation with her father, there's a really good scene in there that I enjoyed quite a bit, but I think that relationship was just a little bit underwritten overall. I would have liked a little bit more there, but I think overall, Wu's directing is really solid in this film, and that's something I really did appreciate here for sure. And the cinematography here as well, I think, is definitely very well done. That's something else I really did appreciate. I think the film is definitely very well filmed, particularly the ending scene was very effective. I really like the way this film ended. It was a lot more, I would say, bittersweet than most, and that's something else I really appreciate about this film. I like the score a lot as well, and the way the film is paced, I think, is also really good. It definitely is pretty fast-paced, but it does slow down a bit towards the end, and that's something I did enjoy. And another thing that I really liked, again, is just seeing the similarities in Ellie and Paul. Paul's family life is not nearly as good as you think it would be. He has these parents that really are on him. They have this expectation of him. There are certain things that he wants to engage in that he really can't. And they play that for comedy, but it's not just like, oh, this is just a funny gag. Like, no, they actually do dive into how this is affecting Paul as a character. And that's something that I did actually really appreciate. Again, the film is not as concerned about these two like fighting over the same girl. It's not really about that. Yes, it starts off and there's a bit of a rivalry, but that relationship is what really sticks out to me in this film, and I think makes it a cut above the rest for sure. And something else that I definitely did like about this film is the culture of it as well, because obviously Ellie is someone that is kind of bullied for her heritage. She's very much picked on for that, and you see how people make fun of like her last name and things like that. And I like that they didn't try to shy away from that storyline of her dealing with that, but also her kind of embracing her culture in a bit. I think that was definitely really well done too. And I think that Collin Chou did a really good job as Ellie's father. He is Taiwanese just like her, and he's trying to do everything that he possibly can to hold things together. He knows that obviously he's not her mother, and so he's trying to do his best there. But at the same time, he really cares about his daughter, and he wants the best for her. And I thought his performance was definitely really well done for sure. In terms of flaws with this movie, I already touched upon how I felt that the stuff with Ellie and her dad, while really good, was definitely underwritten. In fact, I feel like Paul and Ellie's dad had more to do in this film than Ellie and her father. I felt like that whole aspect was very underwritten in this film. But my only other flaw, I would say, is that there is a scene towards the end of this movie. It's in the climax, and the way it played out, I just thought was very convenient. It was very convenient. It was very cliche. It was really the only scene in this movie that felt like a movie. The other scenes in this film, they felt very real. They felt very authentic. And then this scene, it just felt very movie-esque. Like, it felt like a scene that you see in movies like these before, and it just wasn't as convincing as I think it could have been. There's also a really weird direction they take one of the characters in this film that I really wasn't all that into, but thankfully it's just that one scene, because everything after that I thought was pretty much handled perfectly. The way it was done was actually very sweet, and that's something that I really did appreciate quite a bit. Again, the film does a really good job, I think, of reverting from certain beats that you expect it to hit until we get to this certain scene in the film that I do think almost disrupts it. I don't think it brings it down entirely, but it does disrupt it just a little bit. And there are some cliches in there with some of the side characters. They're just not as well developed as I think they could have been. I think there was a little bit more that they could have done for sure. But again, there's a lot that I really do enjoy quite a bit about this movie. The relationship between the two characters is very strong. Leah Lewis, especially, I think is definitely going to be a star after this film. I definitely do want to see her in a lot more things after this one. The dialogue here is really good. The movie is a lot of fun as well, but it isn't afraid to really get into these characters and present them as real people as opposed to just archetypes, which we rarely see in films like this, and that's something that I definitely did appreciate. It's got some really great directing. It has a really powerful ending, actually. Again, I was not expecting them to go where they did the end of this film, but I actually thought it was very effective, and I really liked where they end up going with it for sure. It's just overall a much better film than I think this really could have been. It's definitely one of the better films that Netflix has put out high school-wise in quite a bit. I definitely would recommend this one, and I am going to give the half of it overall a B+. But over, guys, in my review, the half of it. Let me know what you guys saw this movie overall. Left your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.